the first ranking we're going to do, and this is a consensus between me and Vish where we actually agree on all these, but we're ranking the NFC West quarterbacks. So, Vish, who do you think is the fourth best quarterback in the NFC West? If you want to give a shout out to someone who just missed the cut, feel free. I mean, Josh Rosen's always a good one. John Walford, Nate Sudfeld, all those guys.
Yeah. I mean, are we doing – we're basically doing position groups, but for quarterback, I think we kind of just went with the starter just because the backup is kind of irrelevant. In this case, the Niners quarterback, the starter is Jimmy G / Trey Lance. And to me, that's the fourth best quarterback. If it's Jimmy G, he is the fourth best quarterback in this division by far. If it's Trey Lance, he's just unknown. He could be the second best quarterback in the division a year from now. But right now, he's a rookie. He hasn't played. So that's why, to me, those two are the fourth best quarterback in the division right now. I think we're going to elaborate on the other three, and the other three are very, very good quarterbacks. So it's no shame being fourth best quarterback in this division. I would say the other three are all within the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. So there's no shame really in being the fourth guy in this particular ranking. But I would have the Niners fourth here, or the Niners quarterbacks of Trey Lance / Jimmy Garoppolo.
I agree with you on that. And I did just want to say, like, it's tough to say because Jimmy G is like certified for it. Like, you can't really argue that. But Trey Lance, like, he could be a top 10 quarterback. He could be a top 5 quarterback, or he could be a bottom 5 quarterback. We have no clue how he looks. He has the makings of being one of those high profile guys, but it's tough to say. So that's why we're going with him at fourth. But I would love to visit this a year from now and see if our things have changed at all, because it's more than possible that the order's entirely different. But Vish, who do we have at 3?
Yeah, at 3, and this is, to me, this was the hardest ranking, 3 versus 2. And I mean, 3 and 2 are actually 2 of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, I've talked on little individual points how much I like both of these quarterbacks. And I went with Matthew Stafford and the Rams at 3. I know you also agreed with that. I think we have our reasons for Kyler Murray being above Matthew Stafford. But to touch on Matthew Stafford a little bit, this is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. Incredible arm strength, incredible thrower, pretty good process, great mover within the pocket, can make plays off schedule, just makes so many damn plays in a game, but it gets clouded by the fact that he has to make 100 plays for the Lions to win because they don't run the football, they don't protect the quarterback, they don't play good defense, and he has to do every single thing for them to win the game. I think we're going to see a different Matthew Stafford. I mean, the only reason maybe I have a little reservations is even though I think him and McVay are going to be great, we just haven't seen it yet. I think there's a good chance Matthew Stafford might have like a close to MVP season. I wouldn't be surprised if he has that season with McVay next season. And we go, holy cow. We put Matthew Stafford at 3rd, and he's a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. And like, wow, what were we thinking? But, like Matthew Stafford, incredible football player. But to me, he's 3rd. And there's one particular reason why I have Kyler Murray above him, even though I do think with Kyler Murray, there are some things to be concerned about that have popped up over the last 2 years that he needs to improve on. Obviously, he's only 2 years into his NFL career, so you would hope he can. He's really young and he's really talented. But yeah, to me, he's 3. I think you want to elaborate more because I know you also agreed with me on this one.
Yeah, I had Stafford at 2. Obviously, being a Packers fan, my team had to face him twice a year. So I was never scared of like their team just because it's the Lions, and like the Packers have like just owned the Lions over the past, inception of both franchises pretty much. But Matthew Stafford can strike fear into anyone. I mean, you mentioned it, like he hasn't yes, he had Calvin Johnson for a number of years, which helps a lot. But over the past few years, having Galladay and Marvin Jones, like it's not like they've had anything crazy. He went the longest time without having a 100-yard rusher, which was always brought up. I mean, they had Javid Best, who was pretty cool and stuff, but never really had a good running game. The O-line hasn't been great. They had a really good defense for a few years, but coaching leaves a little bit to be desired, and same with the front office. But I do really like the fact that his arm is just like I'd say probably top 5 in the league. I wouldn't say 1 or 2, but I'd say 5 or 6. You could definitely make a case for that. So he makes all the throws there. Out of the pocket, can do the same. I think you've seen it, Vish, but against, I believe it was the Browns, he threw a touchdown pass with like a torn rotator cuff.
As a
And
rookie.
it was like a mic'd up moment. And just, he puts it all on the line, and he's an awesome player. So he's obviously great. You mentioned top 12. I would have him somewhere in there too. It's kind of hard to rank them all. I'd have to think about it more, but he's in that category. The only thing with me is he is a lot older than Murray, and injury concerns a little bit there over the last few years, especially his body's broken down. He's missed more games than usual because he was an Iron Man. But yeah, that's the main reason I would just have him a little lower. And he also just hasn't shown the ability where he has taken over games, but Kyler's done the same in shorter amounts of time too. But
wait, I have a question real quick. You have Stafford at 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. You said 2 at the beginning, so it's just a little bit confused.
Yeah. I have him at 3 along with you, but we both have Kyler at 2. Why do you have him at 2, Vish?
Yeah, it's really the running. I think that's what separates Kyler from Matthew Stafford. Like, I would say in terms of functioning from the pocket, Stafford's actually still the better quarterback. Like Kyler Murray, there are still some concerns with how he processes, whether he can see, because he does pass up middle of the field routes like Russell Wilson, like other quarterbacks who aren't very tall and can't see over offensive line and see throws over the middle of the field. But I think, obviously, Kyler Murray, when it comes to arm strength, Kyler Murray also has a very, very strong arm. He has a really quick release. He drops back deep in the pocket and can touch every part of the field. Incredible deep ball thrower. But to me, the running is really what kind of separates him. And for whatever reason in the NFL, we had this taboo where quarterback rushing stats, it's not included. Like, yeah, you had 26 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, Kyler Murray. But if you ran for 8 more touchdowns, that doesn't count in your stats. Like, it's not like you ran for those. And I don't know why that is. His running is actually like really incredible. It's a little Michael Vick like. I mean, he ran for 800 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Are you kidding me? He's so fast. He's so quick. He's impossible to tackle one-on-one. He's the only explosive element to their offense last year, and I would say he carried their offense.
Yeah.
A lot of people would question his mental process and say that's what hurt him in the second half of this year. I would say no. I would say his mental process was kind of stagnated. Like it wasn't the best even through the first 8 weeks of the year. It was just that he got hurt and he banged up his shoulder, and I don't think he was as confident running around and making plays. But I mean, you look at and his throwing is obviously incredible too. Like the throw of the Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins to beat the Bills. It's one of the best throws of the NFL. Like he's running full speed to his left and he just flips his hip and rockets the ball 55 yards. He's an incredible football player. I think him and Matthew Stafford are like right around the same area. They're probably in the same tier of quarterback. I would just say that I would have Kyler Murray just a little bit in front just because of that running element. And I think that's really important because 800 yards and 11 touchdowns is not empty production. That's a real stats. And those 11 touchdowns do make a difference when you account for 37 touchdowns in a season. That's unbelievable.
I think the running too, and this doesn't get brought up enough, where when you're behind a O-line that's maybe not as good as others, like you can just bail them out. Like just flat out bail them out by being able to evade someone who, sheds a tackle or sheds a blocker really quickly. And he has done that time and time again where, the play will break down and there's a guy in his face and he'll just either loop around or just run around him and pick up like 5 yards or whatever. And that's the stuff that puts me over the edge or puts him over the edge for me with Stafford. And Stafford's not bad at running. Like he's not the slowest of slowest. He can take a hit. He's a big guy, but he's nowhere near as quick, not even in the same realm of quickness as Kyler. And I think him and you see this with Lamar all the time too. And they're just overall like elusiveness and ability to change direction where when they're in the open field, like they're definitely like the hardest guys to tackle compared to like a receiver or a running back, and that they are so quick and they'll just juke you out of your shoes. So that for me with Kyler, and you mentioned his shoulder. No one talked about this last year, but you saw in this, I think it was the Seahawks Thursday night game where you just see him like icing his shoulder, and clearly they lost a few games after that and his throwing was nowhere near as good. And I think that's a big part as to why like their team slowed down and why he slowed down. But Yeah, I mean, he was obviously phenomenal this last year, and I'm excited to see them. They have a few more weapons. They got AJ Green, they got Rondale Moore, and they bolstered their receiving core even more because they have Hopkins, obviously. But around that, Kirk and Andy Isabella is maybe not the best. We'll see with Fitz, but I think they'll be improved this year, and we get to see year 3 of Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, which will be exciting.
Yeah. And the other thing about Kyler I wanted to mention also is that he is their run game. Like, they don't have a very creative run game scheme. They don't run the football particularly well. Like, they get bailed out by the fact that Kyler Murray can run for 85 yards in a game, and he can change the game with either his legs or his arm. So he does make a massive impact overall as a football player, even if there are questions with his ability to execute and his processing, because he's so physically gifted. And that brings us to one. I think everybody knew who one was going to be before this topic started. He's been the best quarterback in the NFC West since about 2013 or 2014. It's obviously Russell Wilson, even though he had a down year last year, and there were some things that popped up that have always existed with Russell Wilson that I thought were maybe exasperated because of the number of times he threw the football. But is there much more to say about Russell Wilson? I mean, the guy is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, perennial top 5 quarterback, I feel. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, he was looking like MVP, and the media was a little too hype on him maybe, and kind of fell back to earth. And I know their offense coordinator got fired. They haven't always had the best run game considering the injuries. And then you take into the fact that, yeah, I mean, Metcalf and Lockett are really good, but besides that, they didn't really have another receiver that was, or tight end that was ideal for their role. So he's always worked or done a lot with a little. And I just wanted to mention that 2019, if you take a look at just what the Seahawks did and you look at their roster at the end of the year, he was actually just dragging that team to a insanely good record. I believe they went 13-3. And their team was just, they had like virtually no talent on offense. And the fact that they were able to get that far just speaks volumes to how valuable and how much they lean on Russell Wilson. And I know we've brought this up a lot, Vish, but he might have the best deep ball in the league. It is just a straight moonshot, so much air under it, always right on the receiver's chest. So I think Russell Wilson's top 5 quarterback still. I know he did not look good against the Rams or end of the year in general, but yeah, Russell Wilson's definitely the number 1 quarterback in the NFC West.
Yeah, by far. And he didn't have the best season. Like, there were a lot of things to be concerned about. Like, he was just not seeing the field. He wasn't seeing open receivers. He ran himself into sacks. He still managed to throw for 40-something touchdowns. He's just an incredible football player. Every year, Seattle's roster looks like it's 3rd or 4th in the NFC West. And by week 10, they're 8-2, and Russell Wilson's having another great season. It's just how it is. And that's what happens when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's an incredible football player. He's by far the best quarterback in the NFC West. Once again, Seattle will have a great chance because he's their quarterback. I hate being so complimentary, but the guy is just an incredible football player. And you talked about the deep ball. I mean, to me, it's got to be in the conversation as one of the best in NFL history. Like, you know, a lot of guys, there's people who can throw maybe the deep ball with more pace, like an Aaron Rodgers. But Russell Wilson on just putting air under it and throwing that moonshot and just having people run under it, it's special. And he doesn't just do it with Metcalf or Lockett. He does it with everybody. I mean, David Moore will catch a moonshot. Right. So just an incredible quarterback. And yeah, so to kind of sum up our rankings, we had Trey Lance / Jimmy Garoppolo 4th. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is the 4th best quarterback in this division. Trey Lance could be maybe 2nd, maybe 3rd by the end of next year. It's just that he's a rookie. He hasn't played, so he is 4th with Jimmy Garoppolo. Matthew Stafford 3rd, obviously incredible quarterback. We both think he's top 12 in the NFL. Everybody knows how much I love Matthew Stafford. I want him to be the Niners quarterback this year, but he's on the Rams. We think he's going to be incredible with the Rams. Kyler Murray 2nd, above Matthew Stafford, mostly because of his running ability. That makes a giant difference. That is part of what a quarterback does. Kyler Murray is a special runner. 800 yards, 11 touchdowns is special running. And then finally, Russell Wilson 1. I don't think you need to elaborate much more. He's been the best quarterback in this division for a while, and he will probably remain it for the next 5-6 years too.